There's nothing I love more than infrastructure. Giant things made of concrete like dams and big walls tickle me in ways my uncle never did. One day I want to go to the Hoover Dam and bear witness to its stark impression on the natural world. Take a walk across its 45-foot thick concrete, maybe try and fuck it too. But not like those friends you see on television. It's going right in my ass. Anyway, my love of infrastructure makes me a prime candidate for joining the ranks in Darktide's Tertium City. If I was living in a tiered city based on my financial status, I'd probably be one of the guys on the bottom floor who cleans up all the jungle juice discharged from every city above. Trickle-down economics consisting of poo-poo and pee-pee probably come too, all for me and my mop. Then, as I'm finally clocking out for the day, I get eaten alive. Now, neither living nor dead, I'm in a never-ending hell, and that's pretty cool. Darktide is far from hell though, and is actually pretty good. It's a spiritual successor to Vermintide, which was overall great except for the weird microtransaction UX and loot boxes. Coming into Darktide, I was hoping they compromised a bit on trying to rinse money out of you in favor of a tighter immersive experience, which is kind of a lot to ask for in this day and age. The story goes you're a prisoner on a ship in space and you have to go down to Tertium, which is a hive city, and fight baddies. The whole game is based in Tertium. I was hoping that this would still produce some pretty wild environments, but simply put, the environments are not very diverse. There's a lot of dark metal walls and a lot of filth. The 40k universe is insanely big, so it's a little disappointing that the experience thus far is a lot of dirty walls. I don't understand why they kept the story so contained to one city, but even letting that gripe go, I figured they would at least show you different tiers of the city, maybe rubbing shoulders with some marble countertops, but instead you're just mopping up poop the whole time. Gunplay is pretty tight. Ranged weapons weren't the best in Vermintide 2, but they nailed it here. Each gun packs a satisfying punch, especially the Ogryn's exclusive meat grinder guns. Melee weapons are even better than they were before. It's just too bad there's no rats to smash in this one. The enemies are similar to rats, but they use guns this time. You still get the large hordes running at you like you're covered in peanut butter, but the addition of ranged enemies with precise shots make it even more important to stick together and watch your back. The enemies look just like your teammates, so just make sure to double check that the boy beside you isn't actually trying to cut your penis off. Surprisingly, it's pretty hard to see in the dark, and I often find myself walking right past people, but thankfully your melee weapons don't hurt your teammates, so you can mosh with peace. There are 4 classes, which are copy and pasted from Vermintide 2 and then made boring. Other than class-exclusive weapons, I don't feel like there's much of a difference between how each one of them plays, and none of them really have any super cool moves. They plan on adding more classes in the future, but it's gonna suck hard if we have to pay for them. Like Vermintide 2, the levels have great detail, but the maze of tunnels and hallways make everything blur together. The game could have benefited from some level of kit bash procedurally generated levels, considering what they did with Chaos Wastes. It's disappointing that they didn't push it with Darktide, and I feel like sometimes I'm rushing through the same missions just to get the XP. It doesn't feel like there's a lot of variety in general, and there isn't a lot of news on how they plan on releasing new missions, but at this point there doesn't seem too much to do once your character is maxed out. The plan is that the story will evolve over time, but to me, evolve rhymes with unfinished. There's a large enough variety of weapons, and each one has a different stat breakdown, which is a little confusing, but at least it's in depth. Crafting is generally pretty dumb, and it's in Darktide, and it's not even finished. What they're intending to do sounds okay. You grab bits and bobs from levels, and you can mix and match perks from other weapons. Of course, there's a cosmetic shop, and it's as predatory as you could ever hope for. Graphics and audio are like Vermintide 2, but better. Across the board, everything looks and feels better, which is what newer games tend to do. The soundtrack is by the same guy that did Vermintide 2, and it makes me feel like I'm a dirty little boy who needs to get back to the sewers where he belongs. Or it could make you feel like you're in space, and also hell, which is probably how it feels to live in the 40k universe overall. The launch performance was pretty painful, but with a 2070 I'm finally over 60 frames on high settings with DLSS on. Someone on Reddit said that everything but actually playing the missions is pretty shit, and I can empathize with that to some degree. They could have done a lot more with the actual lobby, given it's a mutual space with other players to fuck around in, and the MMO side of things feels like it's well over 10 years old. I don't entirely know how the team at Fat Shark operates, but it seems like there is an incredible pool of talent, passionate about delivering an excellent, true-to-lore story, great art direction, and refined gameplay experience, but it's mixed ever so delicately with Scandinavians who want nothing more than to pillage the Western world once again through microtransactions. I have some faith that they will build on this game in a positive way, and I can personally justify the $50 cost, but it's hard to tell you how that $50 plays out any differently than a free-to-play live service experience. Without knowing how good or bad they are going to roll out future gameplay mechanics and missions, it's hard to fully recommend, but if you like co-op shooters, there's easily something for you here. 3 stars.